Reading through the Bible in 1 year. August 28th, 1 Samuel chapter 20, 1 Corinthians chapter 2, Lamentations 5, and Psalms 36. Then David fled from Naioth and Ramah, and came and said to Jonathan, "What have I done? What is my iniquity, and what is my sin before your father, that he is seeking my life?" He said to him, "Far from it, you shall not die. Behold, my father does nothing, either great or small, without disclosing it to me. So why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so." Yet David vowed again, saying, "Your father knows well that I have found favor in your sight." And he has said, "Do not let Jonathan know this, or he will be grieved. But truly, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, there is hardly a step between me and death." Then Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you say, I will do for you." So David said to Jonathan, "Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I ought to sit down to eat with the king. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field until the third evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, 'David earnestly asked leave of me to run to Bethlehem, his city, because it is the yearly sacrifice there for the whole family.' If he says, 'Well, it is good,' then your servant will be safe. But if he is very angry, know that he has decided on evil. Therefore, deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. But if there is iniquity in me, put me to death yourself, for then why should you bring me to your father?" Jonathan said, "Far be it from you, for if I should indeed learn that evil has been decided by my father to come upon you, then would I not tell you about it?" Then David said to Jonathan, "Who will come tell me if your father answers you harshly?" Jonathan said to David, "Come, and let us go out into the field." So both of them went out into the field. Then Jonathan said to David, "The Lord, the God of Israel, be witness. When I have sounded out my father by this time tomorrow, or the third day, behold, if there is good feeling toward David, shall I not then send to you and make it known to you? If it please my father to do you harm, may the Lord do so to Jonathan and more also, if I do not make it known to you and send you away that you may go into safety. And may the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. If I am still alive, will you not show me the loving kindness of the Lord that I may not die? You shall not cut off your loving kindness from my house forever, not even when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth." This comes up later with a guy named Mephibosheth. We'll see that later on, just letting you know ahead of time that it's coming. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, "May the Lord require it at the hands of David's enemies." Jonathan made a vow again because of his love for him, because he loved him as his own life. Again, this doesn't mean they're gay, it just means that they're good friends. Then Jonathan said to him, "Tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed because your seat will be empty. When you have stayed for 3 days, I shall go down quickly and come to the place where you hid yourself on that eventful day, and you shall remain by the stone Ezel. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side, as though I shot at a target. Behold, I will send the lad, saying, 'Go, find the arrows.' If I specifically say to the lad, 'Behold, the arrows are on this side of you, go get them,' well then come. For there is safety for you, and no harm, as the Lord lives. But if I say to the youth, 'Behold, the arrows are beyond you, go, for the Lord has sent you away.' As for the agreement of which you and I have spoken, behold, the Lord is between you and me forever." So David hid in the field, and when the new moon came, the king sat down to eat food, and the king sat on his seat as usual, the seat by the wall. Then Jonathan rose up, and Abner sat down by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul did not speak anything that day, for he thought, "Well, it is an accident. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean." It came about on the next day, the second day of the new moon, that David's place was still empty. So Saul said to Jonathan his son, "Why has the son of Jesse not come to the meal, either yesterday or today?" Then Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave for me to go to Bethlehem, for he said, "Please let me go, since our family has a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to attend. And now, if I have found favor in your sight, please let me get away, that I may see my brothers." For this reason he has not come to the king's table. Then Saul's anger burned against Jonathan, and he said to him, "You son of a perverse, rebellious woman. Do I not know that you are choosing the son of Jesse to your own shame, and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Therefore now send and bring him to me, for he must surely die." So again, what's Saul caring about here? His legacy. He wants the kingdom to go through his name and through his people. This becomes a major point of contention in in Israel. And we'll see this as it later develops. We aren't there yet, but this will be coming up shortly. Just letting you know now that this is the thing that's going to happen. And it's a point that's going to continue through the rest of Israel's history after this moment. This is a thing that happens. It's a big deal. So, his point that he's saying here is that as long as David lives, who everybody knows is the Lord's anointed, right? Because of that, well, Saul's kingdom will no longer stand. Saul is the first king, but the only king out of his lineage who will reign, or at least for now, right? So that's what they're saying, and that's what they're worried about. Saul is looking at his son, Jonathan, who would be the king after him, knowing full well that Jonathan would gladly hand it over to David. Why? Because David is not only his friend, but also he knows that David is the Lord's anointed, specifically to take over this task of kingship in the land. And everybody knows it ahead of time. But the people of the family of Saul are feeling slighted, because they had the first king. They immediately thought everybody, when he was made king, they're like, oh, well, we're suddenly the best family in all of Israel. Our tribe is the highest tribe because it's the one from whom the king comes. But if Saul's only the king for the first generation, and then the next king falls to another tribe, well, then they lose out on that. So we'll see this really develop a little bit at the fall of Saul. There are some things that happen. And then again, there's a bit of some other stuff that happens later on in David's life. But it really wells up after the death of Solomon, David's son. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. But Jonathan answered Saul, his father, and said to him, "Why should David be put to death? What has he done?" He's literally asking, tell me what his sin is. Then Saul hurled his spear at him, at his own son, to strike him down. So Jonathan knew that his father had decided to put David to death. Then Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and did not eat food on the second day of the new moon, for he was grieved over David because his father had dishonored him. Now it came about in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field and for the appointment with David, and a little lad was with him. And he said to his lad, "Run, find the arrows which I am about to shoot." And as the lad was running, he shot an arrow past him. When the lad had reached the place of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called after the lad and said, "Is not the arrow behind you?" Jonathan called after the lad, "Hurry, be quick, and do not stay." And Jonathan's lad picked up the arrow and came back to his master. But the lad was not aware of anything. Only Jonathan and David knew of this matter. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to the lad and said to him, "Go and bring them to the city." When the lad was gone, David arose from the south side and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed each other and wept. But David wept more. But David wept the more. NASB, man. Jonathan said to David, "Go in safety, inasmuch as we have sworn to each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord will be between me and you, between my descendants and your descendants forever." Again, this comes up later with Mephibosheth. You'll see what happens. Then he rose and departed, while Jonathan went into the city. And that's all the notes. Let's go on to 1 Corinthians chapter 2. Paul continues, "And when I came to you, brethren, I did not come with superiority of speech or wisdom, proclaiming to you the testimony of God. For I determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. Again, that which the world sees as foolishness, as stupidity. Why would you care about worshiping a dead God? Because they don't believe in the resurrection, right? So to them, he's worthless. Even if he was physically in the flesh, it didn't matter because he died, and they don't believe that he was resurrected. So the rest of the world thinks it's foolishness, stupidity, right? He continues saying, I was with you in weakness, in fear, and much trembling, and my message and my preaching were not in persuasive words of wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power. So that your faith, again, here's that so that again, right? Here's the reason for all of this. Your faith would not rest on the wisdom of men, but on the power of God. I've said this numerous times. If you can convince someone through stellar speech or your own personal wisdom or whatever it happens to be, if you can coerce somebody into the kingdom of God so that they say the sinner's prayer, they walk an aisle, they raise their hand, and they weep before God and hope that their life might be changed, well, someone else can come along with a better argument than yours and they'll just get right out. There has to be an act of God in their heart to transform them, to build in them a new person who will never leave God. Because we can't, because it's God who holds on to us. Even if we fall into grievous sin, the same thing still happens. We don't fall away from God because it's not us who are holding on to him. It's him holding on to us. Paul continues, Yet we do speak wisdom among those who are mature in their faith. A wisdom, however, not of this age, or of the rulers of this age who are passing away. He's talking about the people who are wise in this age, right? Think about anybody who follows, air quotes, the science, that kind of thing, right? But we speak God's wisdom in a mystery, the hidden wisdom which God predestined before the ages to our glory. The wisdom which none of the rulers of this age has understood, for if they had understood it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But just as it is written, the things which the eye has not seen and the ear has not heard, that which have not entered into the heart of man, all that God has prepared for those who love him. For to us God revealed them through the Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things, even the depths of God. For who among men knows the thoughts of a man, except the spirit of the man which is in him? Even so, the thoughts of God no one knows except the Spirit of God. Now, we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, so that we might know the things freely given to us by God, which things we also speak, not in words taught by human wisdom, but those taught by the Spirit, combining spiritual thoughts with spiritual words. But a natural man, that being someone who does not have the Spirit indwelling them, does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness. It's stupidity to him. And he cannot understand them because they are spiritually appraised. They literally don't have a heart to understand these things. They may follow along for a while, right? They may like the programs your church has, or they may be self-deceived, thinking that they're Christians because they really want to grasp onto something greater than themselves. But inwardly, they're only worshiping themselves. These are the people you'll find in your church who use the term, well, my God would never say this. My God would never agree with that. My God would never condemn somebody because of whatever their private sin happens to be. And you'll hear this a lot. But these things are impossible for them to understand unless God does the work in them first to convert their heart so they can understand the things of God clearly. But he who is spiritual, he who is converted, he who has the Spirit of God indwelling him, appraises all things, since he himself is appraised by no one. For who has known the mind of the Lord, that he will instruct God? But we have the mind of Christ. Pull up the rest of the notes here for you. All right, there we go. Let's move on to Lamentations chapter 5, the fifth of the Lamentations, the last in this book. I wonder if we start Isaiah tomorrow, or if it's Daniel. We'll see it. Remember, O Lord, what has befallen us. Look and see our reproach. Our inheritance has been turned over to strangers, our houses to aliens. We have become orphans without a father. Our mothers are like widows. We have to pay for our drinking water. Our wood comes to us at a price. Our pursuers are at our necks. We are worn out. There is no rest for us. We have submitted to Egypt and Assyria to get enough bread. Our fathers sinned and are no more. It is we who have borne their iniquities. Slaves rule over us. There is no one to deliver us from their hand. We get our bread at the risk of our lives because of the sword in the wilderness. Our skin has become hot as an oven because of the burning heat of famine. They ravished the women in Zion, the virgins in the cities of Judah. Princes were hung by their hands. Elders were not respected. Young men worked at the grinding mill, and youths stumbled under loads of wood. Elders are gone from the gate, young men from their music. The joy of our hearts has ceased. Our dancing has been turned into mourning. The crown has fallen from our head. Woe to us, for we have sinned. Because of this, our heart is faint. Because of these things, our eyes are dim. Because of Mount Zion, which lies desolate, foxes prowl in it. You, O Lord, rule forever. Your throne is from generation to generation. Why do you forget us forever? Why do you forsake us so long? Restore us to you, O Lord, that we may be restored. Renew our days as of old, unless you have utterly rejected us and are exceedingly angry with us. That's the end of the book. I'm bringing up the last of the notes here. And turns out we're in Ezekiel tomorrow, which I should have known because we already did Isaiah. There we go. Let's go to Psalm 36. Transgression speaks to the ungodly within his heart. There is no fear of God in his eyes, or before his eyes, for it flatters him in his own eyes, concerning the discovery of his iniquity and the hatred of it. The words of his mouth are wickedness and deceit. He has ceased to be wise and do good. He plans wickedness upon his bed. He sets himself on a path that is not good, and he does not despise evil. Your loving kindness, O Lord, extends to the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the skies. Your righteousness is like the mountains of God. Your judgments are like a great deep. O Lord, you preserve man and beast. How precious is your loving kindness, O God. And the children of men take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They drink their fill of the abundance of your house, and you give them to drink of the of the river of your delights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light, we see light. Continue your loving kindness toward those who know you, and your righteousness. There we go. Making sure we're going to get all the notes here. Oh, continue your loving kindness to those who know you, and your righteousness to the upright in heart. Let not the foot of pride come upon me, and let not the hand of the wicked drive me away. There The doers of iniquity have fallen. They have been thrust down and cannot arise. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.